Welcome everyone to Smart Health Talk Radio Show. I'm your host, Elaine McFadden, and I hope you're going to stick with us the entire hour because we got a great show planned for you today. And we're going to have some information to help you be a smarter shopper. And that's actually one of the main reasons we started the show, is that we at least wanted people to have the information to be educated shoppers so that you could make the best decisions for your family. Smart Health Talk isn't here to tell you what to do. Instead, we want you to be an educated shopper so you know the best thing to do. And we really think that our dollars and how they're spent right now is probably the most important thing that can control and change the future of our country, our planet, and our future food supply. And we're talking about making sure that our children are going to be well taken care of when we're not here anymore. And I know some of us are just like to live for the day. We want instant gratification, but we really need to stop and start thinking about these things. And I know that everyone's so busy just trying to make it from day to day, but there is some major things happening. I'm sure you've heard of Standing Rock. We have a great video on our YouTube about Standing Rock with Zen Honeycutt that will probably give you a lot of information you're not hearing on television. And that's pretty much what happens right here on KCAA in Smart Health Talk. We're not one of those mainstream media that has all of their content screened and they're told what they can and cannot say. No, we bring you the truth. We're not beholden to the big mega company corporations out there. We're here for you. That's what we care about. We care about your health, whether you have a high risk of disease, what's happening to your children, our unborn children, their risk of birth defects. I mean, there's so many things involved in our food, what we're putting into our environment right now. One tiny, minuscule drop of pesticide on the top of a pinhead is still a poison that in your body will kill your cells. Sometimes they kill them, sometimes they mutate them. And a mutated cell can end up being a cancer cell. It's a crapshoot. You just really don't know. If you don't have an antioxidant present to neutralize it, because you ate plenty of fresh organic fruits and vegetables, so make sure you had lots of antioxidants in your system, you're actually increasing your risk for cancer. But the thing is, we want to have access to a food system that we can trust and depend on. And on Smart Health Talk, the only food that we can recommend to bring people good health and nutrition and actually heal their bodies from all of these pesticides and chemicals that they've been eating is organic food. And if you don't believe me, I would encourage you to go to YouTube, type in Organic Effect. It's a 3-minute video, won international awards. They took a Swedish family that ate regular food, tested their urine, put them on an organic diet, tested their urine, and there were some surprising results that I think will make you feel very secure in buying organic food and knowing that the main goal, which is to reduce your pesticide load, will be achieved. And we want the organic program to have integrity. All of us that are involved in working with organic companies, I've worked for Nature's Path, the world's largest organic cereal company, for 5 years. Those people are so passionate about making sure that their food is the purest, the best quality they could possibly offer to their customers. And that's the same with organic farmers all over the country. And it kind of tugs at my heart when I hear people not trust that and decide that they shouldn't buy organic because it's a big joke or something. It's a scam, to make more money off them. And I have someone here today, Dave Chapman. He is a farmer from the wonderful state of Vermont, which those Bernie Sanders fans out there, he's definitely from that state. And you'll find that most of the people in the state of Vermont are very in tune with what's going on with our environment, organic food. And Dave had the honor of being chosen to serve on the National Organic Standards Board, and they met last month. And this board is very important to the organic program. And so we're going to learn about that today from Dave, and he's going to explain all that to us. And then the big topic for today is hydroponics and aquaponics. And this is a different way of farming, and in other countries, it's not allowed to have an USDA Certified Organic symbol, but it is in this country, and there's a big controversy surrounding hydroponics on whether they should be allowed to be called organic or not. And so we're going to get to the heart of the matter, and I'm so thrilled to have Dave on our show because this is a man that can really give us good quality information and get us all educated. I'm going to be learning along with you guys today because I don't feel like I'm an expert on this subject, but Dave definitely is. So I am so thrilled to have him on the show. Hey, Dave, are you there?
Hi, Elaine. I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, I can hear you perfect.
Good.
Welcome to Smart Health Talk in KCAA.
Thank you.
And why don't you go ahead and just give us a little something about yourself and how you ended up deciding, the important decisions that come along with what we will and will not allow in our certified or USDA certified organic program.
Yeah. Well, just to make clear, I am not a member of the National Organic Standards
Oh,
Board.
okay. I was kind of wondering about that. I wasn't totally sure.
No. I served on a task force to supply them with information about hydroponic growing and whether it should or shouldn't be called organic. But so I just served as an advisor to the NOSB, but I'm not a voting member.
Well, how did you do that? How did you advise them? Did you do that in person or just send them a paper that you wrote or?
Well, there were 15 of us on that task force, and about 2/3 of the members were um, hydroponic growers or people who supported hydroponic production being included in organic. About 1/3 were opposed, and so we ended up with a fairly divided report. I mean, we always knew that there would be two very different points of view, and that's what happened. So the report, we spent about half a year researching and composing the report, which came out last July. And as a result of that report, there was a proposal for the fall meeting of the NOSB to whether or not to allow hydroponic production to be included in certification. And unfortunately, that proposal was sent back for further study, which was, I think, a real defeat for real organic, but we'll try again at the next meeting.
Well, when I started doing my research for this topic, I was surprised to learn how many other countries do not allow, and actually there's an international law as well regarding being able to call hydroponics organic. I mean, we're talking like, Mexico, I believe Canada, Japan, 24 European countries. Why did they choose to allow hydroponics, but the United States isn't? I mean, they don't allow it, but we allow it. Sorry.
Yeah, Mexico hasn't quite finalized their standards, so we can't say for sure. But at the proposed standards that I last saw, they said hydroponics should not be allowed. Canada has said that as well. They are not as strict. Canada's not as strict as most of the EU. In most of the EU, for something to be called organic, it needs to be grown in the ground. They have a very simple starting point for that. That if something is grown in a container, unless it's going to be sold as a potted plant, but if it's a harvested crop, it can't be grown in a container and then get certified as organic. So the only people in Europe who are doing that are selling it to the U.S. because they can't sell. There's a bunch of Dutch growers who are growing mostly peppers in hydroponic peppers in greenhouses, and they can't sell them as organic in Europe, so they're selling them as organic to you and me.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that works out good for them, doesn't it? But what about, I'm here for the consumer.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not here to pad the pockets of hydroponic farmers. I want nutrition in people's bodies. That's what I want,
yes,
and I want the optimum because can you kind of give us an explanation in your own words of the concept of kind of the nutrient potential of a plant based on like how it's grown. I don't think very many people
yeah.
have really thought about that.
No, it's very interesting because organic growing was always based on the idea that um, a healthy soil would produce healthy plants, healthy animals, healthy people, and um, the way that that happens is a beautiful and sophisticated thing. And people, organic farming got called organic because it was based on making sure there was enough organic matter in the soil. And the reason for that is to provide a food source for all the living things in the soil. And from bacteria all the way up to groundhogs. I mean, there's a lot of different critters living in the soil that are feeding on each other, and they're feeding on the organic matter, and those critters are also being fed by the plants. Interestingly enough, the plants get energy from the sun through photosynthesis, and they exude a lot of the sugars that they make from that photosynthesis out of their roots, and they're feeding the mycorrhizal fungi and the different bacteria who are living very close to the roots, and they get these critters get their energy from the plant, and in exchange for that, they work with they basically like they're like a big stomach. They're digesting the nutrients that are in the soil, in the mineral part of the soil, and releasing that and exchanging that with the plant. So they get the root exudates, and the plant gets minerals. And the thing about the mycorrhizal fungi is these are very it's hard to find the right word, but you could say very intelligent processes where these uh, these fungi don't just take up anything. They're very selective. They exclude things that are believed to be that they sense to be toxic, and they take in things that the plant needs and that they need, and then they're exchanging that with the plant. And so this is sort of like, they've done a lot of studies, and they know that eating a diet of a lot of vegetables and whole grains is very good for you, but they're actually not able to isolate and synthesize what it is that's good about that. So if they just try to give people vitamins going, well, it's this and that, they have not been successful. It seems to be more complicated than we can decipher. And so we know that eating these foods is good for our health. And likewise, we know that food growing in a really healthy soil is also good for our health. People talk about nutrient density, and that's what they're talking about is this process whereby the plant gets not just a small number of minerals, but 33 nutrients that it needs in the proper ratios. And some of these are
Right.
very, very slight amounts, and too
Because
much of that would be bad.
right, because some of these minerals we just need small amounts, but they're one of the things I was fascinated with as a dietitian is the role that minerals play as a coenzyme. And people don't understand like what an enzyme accomplishes in our body because it can speed up a reaction, become a catalyst to speed up a reaction, and some reactions can't even happen if these minerals are there. And then when you don't have the minerals to speed up the reaction, it could take a very long time for something to happen that you need to happen right away to prevent a disease or something else bad inside your body. And so when you're talking about these little minute amounts, they're still extremely critical because those are not minerals we need a lot of. They would be toxic in large amounts, but they play such a
Exactly.
critical role in our body in these coenzyme reactions that happen all the time. so I'm,
That's right.
yeah, so
That's
I'm
right.
sorry. I just wanted to kind of throw that in.
No, no, that's well said, and it's a beautiful
It's
thing
beautiful. I love it. Our
as yeah,
bodies are
it's
awesome.
beautiful.
It's
And
so
all
awesome.
of this co-evolved, right? The plants and all the microbes co-evolved over millions, 350 million years. This coevolution was going on, and in that coevolution, they got it right. I mean, they got it right because we all evolved together, and um, we're part of that. It's fascinating to me that the plants are such an active part of the soil community. It's not like the plants just sit there passively. If you take the plants away, the whole community crashes and dies. You can't have living soil without plants as being an integral part of that.
Well,
And you
and
can't have plants without the microbes and all the tiny creatures and larger creatures that are part of this very complex ecology. It all works together.
and you said that so well, Dave, because I know that one of the biggest pro arguments for hydroponics and aquaponics, and at some point I'd like us to explain the difference to our listeners so they understand that. But
Sure.
one of their big arguments is that they are actually they're more sustainable. They use less water. Supposedly we can produce more food. Uh, but yet we're moving to a whole different system of producing our food, and it's almost like they're saying like growing in the ground isn't worth it,
Yeah.
and isn't our future. And what I mean, how do you picture like that kind of a world versus a world where we go down a different path where we start transitioning all of our farms to sustainable regenerative agriculture, growing organically, by changing over all of our fields in the country to that type of system versus the GMO pesticide system, or go the greenhouse? Because I've driven up through Seattle up towards Vancouver up there, and you just see miles and miles of these greenhouses uh,
Yes.
along the highway up there. I was just blown away. And I'm thinking in Holland, that company that you were talking about, it's probably the same situation with just all of these greenhouses. And when I was researching this study, and because I buy all organic food, and I know what good food tastes like because I used to sell produce. I used to go to the farms and pick up fresh organic produce. So I know what the best tastes like. And even when I was eating Driscoll's organic strawberries, I kind of thought, I don't know. There's like something not quite all there. I could still taste that there was like something missing. And these building blocks that you brought up, which I'm so grateful that you brought that up because I think that's so critical. It's just like if you were going to build a car or some, you have certain parts that have to be there or that car is not going to run. And I feel like a lot of this produce today, we're missing all these critical pieces. And I came to that conclusion watching produce spoil in my little fruit and vegetable stand because I noticed that organic spoiled in a different way. Like, for example, an orange, a conventional one, would collapse. The center would just collapse. And then it would start to rot. Whereas an organic orange, it would never collapse. It would just maybe get a little dehydrated, a little bit wrinkly on the skin. And I had one farmer explain that that wax they put on the outside makes it sweat and rot from the inside.
Mm,
But
yeah.
anyway, so I feel like we've got all these building blocks missing. And then I'm really big on breastfeeding. And I don't, I have said for years, there is no way that that formula, especially the non-organic formula that's full of GMOs, could replicate what is in breast milk. Because there are things in there, just like you said, that we don't even understand yet. We haven't isolated. And so many things work in clusters, they work in groups. So that
Yes.
so one nutrient has to be there for another nutrient to work. They're like a team. And I feel like with breast milk versus formula, to me, that kind of is the same concept when we're talking about a fertile organic soil full of, like, isn't there like trillions of organisms in even just a square inch of soil, Dave?
It's amazing how much there is. I think it was 2,500 uh, kilometers of uh, mycorrhizal fungi interface in a cubic meter of soil, which is
It's
that's
unbelievable. You're just
that's a
like,
lot of
wow.
that's a lot of that's right. That's a lot of fungi if you stretch it out. Look, um, a few things that you said that I want to address. One is about Driscoll's. One of the things I think one of the real shocks that came up for us on the task force, um, and none of us, I won't say none of us, most of us had no idea that Driscoll's was, as it turns out, the biggest hydroponic organic producer in the world. And they've got over 1,000 acres of hydroponic production in hoop houses. And we just didn't know about this. I mean, really,
Me either.
nobody knew about it. It was so stunning. I was so taken aback, and we only learned it at the very end of the whole process. So, we suddenly discovered that there's a great deal of money involved in this conversation. This isn't just a debate about the merits. This conversation is being sculpted heavily by lobbyists, and I would say the organic farmers are fighting hard to keep the standards honest and transparent. And we're not doing great, we're not doing terrible, but it's hard to go up against that much power and money. Um, so we'll see what happens. What has happened is that there's been quite a movement growing, and we're now finding ourselves connecting to the same movement in Europe, where they've been much more successful at keeping their standards honest. But they're worried that if we are not successful in the end, they won't be either, because there are these bilateral trade agreements that make it, even right now, uh, somebody who's being certified from Mexico by the USDA could export their tomatoes to Holland, and it would not be legal to grow them there and call them organic. But if they were exported from Mexico, it would be legal, and they don't want that to happen. So
Everyone needs to
everybody,
get on the same page.
everyone needs to get on the same page
Hmm.
and understand this is happening. And it's been almost invisible, because you go in the store and you see the organic label, and I always buy organic. We all do, and you can't tell.
I was
Who
going to
knew
add,
that
that was one
Driscoll's
of my
berries
questions
were
I had for you,
hydroponic?
Dave. How can
Yeah,
you tell? How can you tell? I can tell somewhat by the taste and the way that it looks. Uh,
yes. Well,
I,
taste is the best thing. If it tastes totally bland, then it probably it depends. If it's a tomato, right now, if it's a tomato, if it's a beefsteak tomato, uh, in most supermarkets in the country, it's hydroponic, even when it's certified organic. I was visiting my
because this
daughter
isn't
lives
the
out in
time of year
L.A.
for tomatoes, right?
I was visiting my daughter in L.A. in January. I was out in San Diego for the task force meeting,
Hmm.
and I stopped. And when I was in LA, I went to Whole Foods in Hollywood, and I really liked the store. And I was talking to a produce guy. They have a great produce department there, and almost everything is from 60 miles, within 60 miles of Hollywood. It's amazing. And I looked at the tomatoes. I said, are these tomatoes hydroponic? And he said, I don't know. And I said, okay. And we talked about some other stuff. And then I was leaving. He said, could I ask you a question? I said, sure, what? He said, what was that you asked me in the beginning? I said, about hydroponic. He says, yeah, what does that mean? He didn't know. He'd never heard the word.
Really, the
And
produce
I,
manager in Whole
no,
Foods.
but look, this guy cared. He really cared about his produce. He just didn't know what the word meant. And I explained it, and he said, well, that's not right. That shouldn't be organic. How can I tell? And I said, you can't tell. There's no labeling. He said, I've never seen anything on the boxes. I said, no, they don't have to. And this is what we're up against. He was upset, but even the guy stocking the shelf didn't know. And this was somebody who cared about his job. He cared about the food. And certainly the customers can't tell. So what do we do?
Yeah, what do
You
we
know,
do?
we have to speak up. And you're here doing it, Elaine. So, and I'm doing it. We're all speaking up. We have got to say that organic needs to be organic.
We need
There's a
integrity in our program. And I have talked to like Jay Feldman from Beyond Pesticides,
yes,
who was
yeah, Jay's
on
great.
the original, you know, committee of forming, this
Yeah,
USDA program that took 3 years pounding it out, and a fight before that for several years just to get to the table. And to me, the National Organic Standards Board, they were set up to make sure that the integrity of the organic program was maintained. And the reason that they have meetings every year is because when they first started, there were many ingredients that were not available in mass quantities organic that were needed by the food industry to create their products. And so the National Organic Standards Board was at first they allowed ingredients that are no longer allowed right now. And that's because every year they have worked on reviewing, and when they've figured out, oh, this ingredient is now widely available in organic, there's no reason for us to allow a synthetic form of that in an organic product. So they disallowed it. And why don't you share with everyone what did happen in the National Organic Standards Board with a very highly controversial ingredient that people have been fighting like crazy to get it out of organic for years.
yeah. They finally succeeded in getting carrageenan out at the St. Louis meeting, and that was great. It was, um, but
Yeah,
you know,
it's not out
it
yet.
was this. Well, it was the same meeting where they refused to take a vote on the hydroponic issue, which I think is much more fundamental to the meaning of organic.
I agree.
Um,
I
we
agree.
we need to debate about the synthetic additives for sure, and it was great that they challenged carrageenan. It was a big effort. There was a big battle. I can't tell you how many people were there representing the carrageenan industry testifying for it. So it was a battle. There were a lot of lobbyists fighting about it. But we won on that. But this thing about hydroponic, I would say that there are two major issues facing organic standards right now. And one is animal welfare. And there are um, in the egg, dairy, uh, milk and meat world, there are farms being certified that shouldn't be. Um, you know,
Really?
uh, Cattle should be uh, have real access to pasture during the times of the year that there is pasture, and there are farms being certified that aren't doing that, and they're basically CAFOs. They're basically just contained feeding operations, and they're feeding organic grain, yes, but they're not um, treating those animals the way animals should be treated on an organic farm, and the nutrition isn't going to be there either. And if there is a proposal to tighten up the animal welfare standards, and the new standards are not good either. But if they pass this weak amendment, that alone will eliminate 3/4 of the organic eggs that are being certified right now. the so-called organic eggs. So it's a step in the right direction,
It's
but
that widespread.
we need to keep fighting. And the problem is, in all of this, we're up against some big corporations. It's just the oldest story, but it is the truth that we're up against some big corporations, and they looked at organic and they said, hey, we can make some real money here. And we know how to come in. We know how to do industrial farming. We're good at it. And if we can just substitute a few things to kind of buy off those nuts who are running this, we can get away with it. And that's what's happening. And so the only way to fight that is that we need to really be aware of what's going on and weigh in. Look, I spent years just farming. After the USDA took over the certification, I stopped going to meetings and I was happy to do it. I was happy to just farm and work on my farm. But I was wrong. We need to pay attention to this because as the organic market has grown, which is wonderful that the market's growing, it's wonderful that people are making those choices, but the bad guys are coming in and we got to fight. And that's just how it is. And hydroponic is the other one. And I think that hydroponic is, we're going to see a major, major shift here. I have spent, you were talking about greenhouses. I grow in a greenhouse, Elaine, and I grow in the soil, and we have incredible soil. It is
Mm-hmm.
teeming with life. It is swarming with worms, and we grow delicious tomatoes in that. And I'm very proud of that.
I would buy
So
them if I could. Okay, Dave.
yes, that's
I would
right. And
buy them in
you
a
would be
second.
happy. So you can do a good job in a greenhouse. It's not to say that we can't grow in a greenhouse. Sheltered growing happens in many northern climates in the world. There are problems that need to be addressed. Energy needs to be addressed, but that is another discussion. But talking about fertility and growing food with nutrient density and that isn't covered with pesticides, that can be done very well in a greenhouse. And what's happening right now is the hydroponic guys are coming in and they're basically freeloading. They're coming in
That's what I feel like.
and they're saying, "Hey, we want this not because we believe in it.
Yeah.
We have big people coming in now. One company has 1,400 acres of conventional greenhouse tomatoes, and they're very active in the coalition to get hydroponic approved right now. Same with the group of growers from Holland. And Holland, in Holland, they've said that if they were allowed to grow hydroponically in organic, they would have 1,000 acres of greenhouses turning over. That's going to happen, and that's going to happen here unless we fight this and stop it. So it's really up to us. The other side has got a ton of lobbyists, and the only thing that we can do is speak up and write about it and talk about it and write letters every time there's an NOSB meeting. Send in a testimony. You can go to the National Organic Program website, and they'll be open to hear from people for 6 weeks before the next meeting, which will be in, I'm not sure, in April or something in Denver. And let them know, when they started the National Organic Program, the USDA wanted to include GMOs, they wanted to include sewage sludge, they wanted to include radiation, and they had to back off on that because they got 100,000 letters from people. And they went, oh, okay, we can't get away with that one.
Yeah, we just did a show a
So,
couple of weeks ago about the Kellogg's compost actually being sewage sludge, but there are no regulations on what
right,
can be put on a bag of compost. And so they put organic on there and they're getting away with it. And they've been doing this
right.
for decades. And people think they're buying a good organic compost. Oh, I'm doing organic. Well, there's sewage sludge, which has so many things in it. But
That's
I wanted to mention that I don't know if you're aware, but General Hydroponics, which is one of the big companies, was just bought by Monsanto. They also bought another microbe company. It's like Bacteriome or something like that.
right,
Um,
right.
and so they're definitely getting into the hydroponic business. And I wanted to ask you, like we talked about like the fungi and the bacteria and all these incredible microbes that are busy in my mind making nutrients, unlocking nutrients, making them accessible to the plant so that they can take it up and give people a food that's packed full of the most nutrition that you could possibly fit in there, because I only get so many calories at my age and I want every
Yes,
calorie to have
exactly.
as much nutrition, because I know nutrition
Yes,
prevents disease and I want that
that's
for
right.
my body. And so it pisses me off as a dietitian. I feel like people are being ripped off. I feel bad for organic farmers that are out there doing everything right. And then these hydroponics come and they piggyback on the organic. And I actually read an article where they know, they said right there, it was a hydroponic company. They're like, you want to use the term organic because in people's mind, organic is premium quality, where hydroponic is something iffy that we're not really sure about. So they know darn well what they're doing,
Yes.
what's going on, and it pisses me off. I feel like again, the consumer is being ripped off of nutrition, the very thing that prevents chronic disease, which kills you. And so Monsanto is been buying up several different things. They've also been buying up microbe companies and a fungal company. And what do you think about that kind of a concept? Because, like you said, when we feed the soil, and when these people talk about, oh, organic isn't sustainable, there is a way that you can run a farm where the farm is like self-sufficient. You don't even need to bring outside inputs into it because the farm feeds itself. And so they're trying to make it out like organic is so needy. It's so needy of water
Yeah,
and nutrients.
right,
And
right.
it's not
So,
sustainable because of that.
okay, so let's take that beast on. There's a terrible drought in California, and it's not the only place in the world. We're seeing deserts growing everywhere, and that is a result of how we farm. And that is the major contributor. The 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 water vapor being in the wrong place in our whole ecosystem, being in the upper atmosphere instead of in a cycle of rain and ground, that's why we have an increase in deserts. And the reason that that's happening is because of how we farm. And we've been farming poorly for a long time. There's just more of us. And so the effects are building up more and more. When people talk about, well, hydroponic is the answer because it uses so much less water, it does use less water in an immediate sense. If you've got an acre greenhouse and you're either going to water and have that water go in the ground or you're going to recycle it, it does use less water to recycle it. But the answer is to figure out how to get our climate back where it ought to be. How do we rehydrate California? Now, that's not a small issue. It's a giant issue, but it is the issue that all of us face, our kids and our grandkids. This is their future. How are we going to stop our planet from overheating? That's a pretty big deal.
Well,
And
Rodale
we're not going to
Institute
do it.
says organic farming reverses climate change. That's what the Rodale
That's
Institute white
exactly
paper
right.
said.
That's right. So I think that the only way that we are going to stop global warming is through much better farming practices. And the best model we have of that right now is organic farming. It's not the only one. There's a healthy soil movement that has adopted many of the techniques of organic farming, but for whatever reason, they don't want to call it organic farming. Fine, but let's not damage organic farming. Organic farming is the answer. It's not the problem. It's the answer to this. And when you see hydroponic guys coming in and saying, well, that's not organic. Organic isn't about the soil. They're saying outrageous things. There was one person, I think it was in the New York Times, who said, well, just because you grow in soil doesn't mean you're growing in the dirt. They were trying to redefine soil as well as redefine organic. We can't allow it to happen. This is important. This isn't just somebody trying to make a living. This is all of us being able to live. I really believe that. So it's very important that we all become more sophisticated about our climate and about the soil and about the key role that healthy soil plays in a healthy climate, as well as healthy animals, healthy people, healthy plants. It all goes back to the soil. We're not going to survive without a healthy soil, and
I
and
agree.
organic is the way to do that. Elaine, before I just want to say one thing, make sure that it gets said.
Sure, go
There
ahead.
was a there was a farmers rally we called it the Rally in the Valley in Vermont last month. Well, the last day of October, and it was a pretty exciting thing. We were there were I think there were about 250 people there. There were 67 farms from 5 states in New England. Senator Patrick Leahy came and spoke. Elliot Coleman came and spoke. Representative Peter Welsh, Representative Shelley Pingree came and spoke. Shelley's from Maine, the others are from Vermont. And we had a tractor rally. There were 27 tractors.
How
It was a
fun.
small action, but it was exciting and it was fun. And we went a mile down the road from one farm to the other, and people got
A tractor
together and
convoy. Woo!
yeah, it was, everybody loves a tractor
Yeah,
convoy.
that
And
would be
it
fun.
was exciting. It was fun. And I really recommend that people go to the website and watch. There's a short video of 9 minutes, and there's an hour long that has virtually all the speakers, and they're well worth listening to. And if you go to the website, keepthesoilinorganic.org. So
Okay.
keepthesoilinorganic.org, and the page you come to will give you a choice of the two videos. And I really think it's important that people see that and get an example of the kind of local action that we can do. Out of that local action, there were 4 stories in the national press: the New York Times front page,
Right
Boston
on.
Globe front page, NPR, All Things Considered, and National Geographic, all within a week. All this was the week leading up to the NOSB meeting. So this has become really an international issue now, just because some farmers started speaking up. We started some petitions, we started writing letters, and we need help, and we need help from California, especially. You guys are the biggest
Producers,
organic
yeah.
producers in the world, in terms of being in one state. And you're also the biggest problem. You've got the most compromised agriculture, and you've got some of the great organic pioneers and the next generation. So we really need you guys to weigh in on this issue, because I'll tell you, all of the hydroponic stuff, we got a bunch from from Holland, and there's some from Canada, but a lot of it comes from Mexico and California. And Driscoll's, it's all Mexico and California. So it's in your backyard, and we need you guys to get riled up.
Well, I encourage people to go to their local farmers market and buy from your local farmer, and that is like the absolute best way. And our farmers market, we have meat, we have eggs, we have like just beautiful produce. But I have to plug a little bit. The owner of KCAA actually drove his tractor all the way from Texas to Washington D.C. and back for farmers' rights back in the day. And
Yeah,
so he's totally on board with the tractor convoy.
good.
But I wanted to mention, one of the things that I learned in my research, that they have to feed these microbes, and they're giving it sugar. And that I did see a mention of beet sugar being used, and we know that it's like 98% of the sugar beets grown in the United States are GMO. So I'm really questioning the integrity of these products that are being used in organic. They say that they have to meet organic standards to be able to call organic, and I'm kind of wondering what's the hydroponic organic standards that they're measuring all this by. And since I've been doing that, Earthbound Farms, so many of these companies have been bought up by big corporate, just like you were talking about earlier, and that's when everything starts to go downhill. I know
Yes.
Horizon. Anything? Oh, there we go. Horizon has been called out for the things that you were talking about, not following the rules, not doing organic the way it's supposed to be done. And so I make it a habit to never buy Horizon when it's my dollars. And people need to take that dollar and they need to start giving it to the right companies, the right people that deserve it. And it's definitely your local farmer. But when we're talking animal welfare, the fact that Smithfield's was allowed to be bought by a Chinese company, I was very upset about that. And then when Hormel bought Applegate, I was also very upset about that. And I think they bought it because of the massive millions and millions of pig, chicken, animal die-offs that happened over the past 3 years due to different viruses and infections. And I talked to someone that she saw entire floors of just like thousands and thousands of pigs that had to be killed because they were all infected. It was literally turning their insides to liquid. Just extremely, and you wonder how many borderline animals were slaughtered and sold as food that were actually infected. And I really think that Hormel bought Applegate because they needed new stock because it just came out this week that they have detected an antibiotic resistant gene in pigs. They studied this one farm, and this antibiotic resistant gene is resistant to our most powerful antibiotic, which is extremely scary because if our most powerful antibiotic is not going to work, people are screwed. They cannot have surgery if they have an
Yeah.
infection where the antibiotic, they can't control it. So,
Yeah.
that was like another thing that I wanted to bring up. And then Earthbound Farms, I'm really starting, they used to be a company that I loved. And then they were bought by big corporate. And now I'm really thinking that a lot of their greens are probably hydroponic as well. I really want to look into that a little bit more, but
Not that I know of.
not that you
Not
know
that I
of.
know of.
They're
No,
too
but I
perfect,
believe they
though. They're
I
too
believe
perfect.
they did testify in support of hydroponics, so they might
Yeah.
have plans.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have my instincts are usually pretty good, Dave.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, this is coming so fast. In 5 years, you're probably not going to be able to get a soil-grown tomato in a supermarket chain in this country, organic, certified organic. You're probably not going to be able to get a soil-grown organic berry in a chain. It's just amazing to see that as the companies get bigger and what they're finding is that they can just make more money this way. That's not why we started
Absolutely.
organic. There
Absolutely.
was no money to be made. We did it. It was a farmer movement in the beginning because we believed it was the way to farm. And the market came afterwards and it's developed and grown that's a wonderful thing. But boy, we're going to have to fight so hard now to keep
That's
it.
right. That we're gonna fight because what this means is again the consumer ends up on the short end of the stick just so we can pad the pockets of these big corporate food companies to make bigger and bigger profits and all the time just like at schools they're selling junk food to the schools. They're making money off kids at school when there's that those foods should never be there. They don't care if they compromise the health of our kids while they're at school, while they're in their care that parents entrust them with. And that is something that like really pisses me off too. But we only have about 4 more minutes, so I wanted to fit in two other things that I think are really exciting because they kind of fit with what you were saying, Dave, about new types of farming methods. And there are actually some exciting things happening with saltwater farming. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I don't know about
Oh,
that.
it's so cool. Over in Denmark, they've been very successful at finding a variety of potato that grows perfectly in salt water. And then I heard that that was happening in Australia too. And so, you know, there, like you said, if we just start going down the path of like looking at like varieties that we have that are not GMO, they've been around for through this whole evolutionary process, and you can actually grow potatoes in salt water. That is huge. And then also, I wanted to know, I want to tell you what I have been telling people, kind of the difference between aquaponic and hydroponic, and I want to see if I'm right or not. I've been telling them, to me, aquaponics, where you have fish swimming in the water and you're using water that that fish is swimming in. So in other words, they've been pooping in it. And then you're using that to circulate through and supply nutrients to your plants. To me, the only difference between that and hydroponics, which uses a fish, maybe it'll use a concentrated fish product that could come from farmed salmon, you know, where they're putting horrible things, they're doing horrible things to those fish. Um, to me, the only difference is they're just adding, you know, this concentrated fish solution to the water versus getting fresh poop from the aquaponics. Am I wrong?
You know, I I don't have any axe to grind with aquaponics, although I don't believe it should be called organic.
Okay.
It is its own thing, and people can decide if they
Right. I'm
think
not
that's a wonderful
against it.
thing or not.
Yeah.
But but again, I think that um, you know, the soil as the basis of the system is what defines organic. It's what's always defined organic. And what we've learned in the last 20 years is that even beyond the vision of Sir Albert Howard and Eve Balfour and the people who really got this rolling, is that even beyond that, there's the health of the planet in a way that we hadn't even imagined, in that it's the one way that we can perhaps heal our climate. So all that's happened is that the vision of those original pioneers has only been reinforced, and I think that we should go with that, and that's what we should be building on. And it's not to say that there's never any reason for any other kind of agriculture, but we better get behind this one, or we're not going to have any kind of agriculture. You
Okay,
know,
Dave, we only have like 30 seconds, and I want to
all
get
right,
that, I want to
good.
get that website in that you told everyone to go to one more time.
Keep the soil in organic.org. O-R-G.
And Longwood Farm is the name of Dave Chapman's farm. For all you listening out there in the Vermont area, if you want to go, and do you encourage people to come by your farm, Dave?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. We're,
Where do you
we
sell?
mostly we have a little bit of stand, but mostly we sell to stores.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for all your wisdom today. And everyone, I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back here next Tuesday at 1 o'clock, and this video will be going up on our YouTube channel, and we're on social media everywhere else. Please reach out to me anytime. We're totally here for you. We care about you. We want you to live a long, healthy life. And please choose organic farms. Go to eatlocalgrown.com to find a local farmer. All right? And I'm Elaine McFadden saying, please buy organic food. Thank you. Bye.
Another record closing high for the Dow. It's 11th just since election.